Well, hi everybody. I am so excited. We are so excited that you've tuned in for another great edition of Pick Your Politics, where we kind of bring you current, relevant political information, what's happening here for local, regional, statewide races, as well as national races, because there is a lot of stuff going on right now in a lot of places, and we just absolutely love it. I'm Dennis Overs, along with my great co-host Stephanie Phillips, and boy, oh boy, I can tell you, looking down the list of future guests that are going to be on the show upcoming in the next several weeks, it is dynamite.
Yeah, and it's packed. We only have 3 more days to schedule before the general election, which is only 2 months away.
That's hard to believe.
So I know, it's coming up quick. So candidates, whoever would like to come on the show, let's get you on the show, because we're running out of spots before
We're running out of spots,
general.
yeah. And it's everybody has really complimented us on the show that's been on. It's been great exposure. It's been fun. They've been able to get their message across. Just like the gentleman that we have on today, who was our special guest. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Garland Brinkley. Garland is the Republican candidate for Nevada State Assembly District 1. And you're kind of going, where in the hell is District? Well, he's going to tell you where District 1. It's part of Clark County and gets into North Las Vegas a little bit. Garland received his doctorate in economics from UC Davis, a school that I went to for a very, very short amount of time, which is in Northern California, a little bit north of Sacramento, and his Master of Public Health from UC Berkeley in 2001. He served as the chair of the Health Economics Subcommittee of the Medical Care Section of the American Public Health Association for 5 years. As recently as 2020, Garland was the area census office manager who oversaw about 1,500 employees in Northern California. So that had to be a very, very interesting experience for him as well. We're going to ask him about it. So without further ado, let's bring up our guest today on the show, Mr. Garland Brinkley. Garland, thanks for coming on the show. Glad we were able to put it together, my friend, and appreciate you spending some time with Stephanie and I.
I'm more than happy to be here. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Garland, let me get this out of the way. I had heard, I don't know if it's true. I want to give you a chance to tell everybody tuning in. I had heard at one time you were a Democrat. Is that true?
Say that again?
I had heard at one time you were a Democrat. True or not?
Oh, it's possible, because in the over 50 years I've been eligible to vote, there's been times I've been one or the other or independent.
Okay. All right. So when do you know that you actually became an affirmed Republican? How long have you been a Republican?
I consider myself a Reagan Republican.
Well, that's a while ago if it was Reagan.
Yeah, that was a while ago. All right, before I turn you over to Stephanie for her first question, how long have you been living in Southern Nevada? Why did you move here, particularly from California?
We've been here about 2 years now.
Okay.
We moved here because in California, crime was rampant. In fact, when we go shopping, we think we should pay for our items that we want. We shouldn't just go and walk out of the store with them. And that's the things that's going on in California. And the policies in California in terms of like energy, you can't even charge your cars if you have an electric car, which we don't. So the policies are getting worse and worse.
It's terrible. And I grew up, as Stephanie, I grew up in the greater Los Angeles area before moving to Las Vegas. One last question. Are people asking you, well, Garland, you haven't been here all that long. How the hell do you know about the issues in District 1? What do you tell them?
Oh, I tell them that when we looked at the District 1, and it's mostly almost all in North Las Vegas, there's issues here that need to be corrected. And this is like education, rising crime, the economy. And with my background being a PhD in economics and a master's in public health, I've taught for over 30 years. So I understand education very well. I did an awful lot of consulting work in terms of crime, programs and that have been implemented in California only temporarily that save tremendous amounts of money and reduce crime substantially. One program went from 53% recidivism rate down to 20%. It cost $600,000 over 3 years, but it saved $12 million a year. So those are the kind of programs to reduce crime that I'd like to see here. So it's like, even though we're new here, we're not with any entrenched interests. We don't owe anybody anything, so we don't have to, dance into one's dance. Where I won't say independent, I don't mean that, but we follow the policies in mostly the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. And the constituents of Assembly District 1 are the ones that I answer to.
True.
They're my boss.
That's true. So you said in your bio that you worked at an Air Force base many years ago. Are you a veteran?
I'm not. I was never in the uniformed services.
Oh, okay.
But it's like during the Vietnam era, I worked at McClellan Air Force Base. Is on a classified project. That's about all I can say about it.
Okay.
I was not paid by the military or by the Pentagon, but by another agency, organization that was based in D.C.
Okay.
And it sounds sexier than it is, but.
Well, if you can't talk about it, then that's, So speaking of your constituents, and you also worked at a vaccine center, if I have that right, let's talk about the vaccine mandates and the lockdowns for a minute. A lot of people, especially on the Republican side, didn't appreciate what Sisolak did as far as telling people they were non-essential. Mm-hmm. And also, there's been a lot of the government telling us we have to get this vaccine and all of this. So can you tell the viewers your stance and opinions on that?
Sure. The lockdowns were terrible. Mandating vaccines were terrible. Now, I'm not anti-vax, and I did as a site manager for a clinic in 2009, 2010 for H1N1. And so that's what that was. The current vaccination, I won't even call it vaccination. It's only that by the kindness of the CDC changing the definition. Mm-hmm. But the jab, I don't see the evidence that it's effective, and I'm looking at the actual studies, not what the popular press says, not what even the CDC says, but the actual studies. Mm-hmm. It's with mRNA derived from, that's messenger RNA. There's no long-term studies of people that have taken it. There just isn't, they don't exist. So I actually refuse to take the vaccine or the jab mm-hmm. For COVID-19. Mm-hmm.
So,
and a lot of the COVID...
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, a lot of the COVID-19 deaths, I would say are misclassified, and that's because hospitals and doctors got economic incentives to classify it that way. They got extra money. So we see a lot more of that on death certificate, right. And they actually died from other causes.
So what you're saying, Garland, if you have your first town hall in your district, should you get into office, you're going to tell your constituents not to get jabbed, not to get the vaccine, not to protect themselves?
I will produce the evidence for them because that's more or less you should listen to your doctor, but you should be careful who your doctor is. But for myself, absolutely not. Not till we know what the long-term effects are. And it looks like there's some studies coming out now that indicate that there's really dramatic and harmful after effects if you've had the jab. Mm-hmm. So I'm honest about that.
So if you win this election and if the Republicans take over the Assembly and the Senate,
Hear,
and
hear.
you're faced with something like this. What if the governor locks us down for some reason, or so? How are you going to vote? And would you even vote to impeach him if he tries to lock our state down again?
Absolutely. And it's like the governor Sisolak was given emergency powers by the state legislature. And it's like, I would not have done that. The state legislature can meet, easy to meet. It's not that far away, and decide then what powers to do and not do to delegate. But it's like the Assembly and the Senate abdicated their responsibilities there. And it's like, yeah, impeachment, absolutely. That's one of the nice things you can do in the Assembly. The Assembly is the only one that can do that. Senate, of course, would try the case, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, in fact, during one of the talks that I gave, when Joy Gilbert, this was in the before the primaries. So Joy Gilbert said the things he would do on day one, if he was elected governor. It's like, wait a minute here. You have to have the approval of the legislature to do some of those things.
True.
So you just can't arbitrarily do things
One of the
as governor.
One of the important things as a state assemblyman, as you know, Garland, is working with the governor as far as passing legislation. But another important factor of their position is the budget. What do you feel about the state budget now? Too much, too little? Where do we need more money? How do we get additional resources? Because that's a very important part of your responsibilities as a state assemblyman.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest influence the assembly has. And it's like, I don't think that we have too much money in government. I think we need less taxes, but we need less spending. There's a lot of, I'll say, bloat in government. So I mentioned already the program that we had in California. I assessed that, where we saved $12 million a year, and it only costs $200,000 a year. So those are things, programs, and that we can implement here and save lots of money.
I wanted to ask you about election integrity. That's a big thing in our state, as you know. So if you were elected, how would you vote? Would you vote for voter ID, no ballot harvesting, no universal mail-in ballots? What do you feel about all of those issues, and how would you vote on those?
Oh, I would vote to not have mail-in ballots. Absentee ballots, that's fine. I would require or vote to have a photo ID.
Do you believe that there was shenanigans that went on in the 2020 election and in this primary election?
In the 2020, absolutely. The primary, probably. When my wife and I watched the certification by the county commissioners, a lot of people spoke about things that they saw and heard, and the questions weren't per se answered, but there was chains of custody for the thumb drives and those kinds of things for the election machines. They didn't have a good chain of custody. So there's a lot of shenanigans that could have taken place. We did not have good transparency with it. One thing I'd like to do also is to have cameras recording every step of the process. From when you come in, when you not what your actual ballot is, but when you vote, when they take the, like I said, the thumb drives out, take it down to the Cheyenne facility, when they count them, and so on, and actually have meaningful observation.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't happening.
So you think what about having it live streamed and have all the voting centers and locations and all of that, and the
Like
counting
that.
and everything?
Oh, I think that'd be great.
And how do you feel about the machines? Should we get rid of those and go to ballots only and hand counts?
You know, I like that because we always have, and we can go back and look at the ballots again. depends on the kind of machine, and we should not have machines, of course, and connected to any kind of internet. We should always have a paper backup ballot. All the machines do is to count faster.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if we didn't have them, I think we'd be fine.
Yeah.
So you would vote to get rid of them if that was something that was brought forward?
Oh, most likely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you. Two questions, Garland. Number one for our people, Garland Brinkley, by the way, is our special guest here on Pick Your Politics. He's running for Nevada State Assemblyman in District 1. Two questions, Garland. Please tell our viewers what District 1 encompasses. And number two, with the prior people in that position, what do you think would separate you from what they have tried to do in the past?
Well, District 1 actually encompasses about half of North Las Vegas, and it includes a small part of Las Vegas and the Iron Mountain part. And that's up way up on Decatur. So that's up there. In the North Las Vegas, it's like Commerce on one side, and I'll say Simmons on the other. And it's like Craig Street is where it is. So that pretty much encompasses it. It goes over 215 and up that way. So that's where it is. The previous people that held this office, the current incumbent was unopposed last time in the last election cycle and the time before that. And I think that's a really bad idea to have people unopposed. When I win this, I'll put it that way. In 2 years, I would really expect to see competition, people running against me. Republicans are fine, Democrat, because we judge the people on the job they do. And if we look at the job that's been done, it hasn't been that good. The education in Nevada, the Clark County School District is miserable. Its lowest is like 49 50th.
Yeah.
I think crime is going up. The economy is doing very poorly, and there's things we could do to correct that.
Yeah.
So like I said, unopposed the last two election cycles. No Republican ran against the incumbent.
Yeah. And you want to do this all for $150 a day, right?
Yeah. Well, one thing nice thing is that I'm retired, so I have the time.
Yeah, all right. That's good.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, speaking of education, would you break up the districts or the district, and are you for school choice?
Well, I would like to see the districts broken up, but the 2017 law is to decentralize, and it's like that may or may not work. I would like to see education freedom. I'd like to see teachers teach and not having special things that they have to teach, and not just teaching a test. I'd like to see the principals have a lot more freedom to do what they want to do. I want to see the parents have a lot more input into their kids' education. And so it's like, 20, 30 years I had academic freedom with where I taught, and we need education freedom here.
Right.
What do you mean by educate? Like a free curriculum where you can teach whatever you want to? Or what are you referring to when you say that? And you want the principal to have more freedom. What exactly does that mean?
Oh, mostly on the budget. So they can hire, allocate funds and so on. The way it is now with a central bureaucracy of 300,000 students, so much money goes to that bureaucracy that does that.
Okay.
And not to the local, decision making. We have, people hired to make decisions that principals should be making.
Right.
So would you be for school choice then, that the parent, they get that voucher and they can take that to whatever school they want to?
I think that's the quickest way to turn the education around.
Okay.
And that also helps if the school has like a safety issue. Parents aren't going to leave their kids there. They're going to move their kids elsewhere where they're safer.
Right.
And so, that's part of it. It's like school choice. So you can have your child go wherever, either private school, charter school, micro academies, any number of different potentials, and homeschooling. And I think parents that homeschool should also get the money.
Yeah. Well, you and I are both for
No, I think it's
For that, go
a
where you
good
want.
idea, right? And what do you think about the curriculum? We hear about CRT, we hear about this hypersexualized education around the country now. What do you think about those things?
I think they're terrible. I think the schools should concentrate on the academics. If you can read and write and do math, the students can do anything. They can find out anything, learn anything, and that's the most important thing. My understanding is that less than half the time in the classroom, the students are actually dealing with academics. Everything else is secondary. And it's like parents I've talked to, teachers, it's like, it's a great thing. Oh, let's teach the kids how to do all these other things. And that doesn't belong in the schools.
Yes.
And if they do have curriculum like that and the parents want that, that's a parent's choice.
Yeah,
And if there's a curriculum being taught that the parents don't agree with, the kids should be able to be moved elsewhere.
Yeah. Garland, how are you getting your message out to people that you are running, you are a very viable candidate, you really want this job? What are you doing to get your word out? Are you holding events? Are you doing mailers? Or what are you doing?
Well, I did a lot of signs. I'll be doing texting, and I'm doing this thing called knocking on doors.
that's
And
good.
it's like, so I'm walking around, knock on doors, talk to people, and that's mostly what I did for the primary. In fact, that's almost exclusively what I did for the primary. Was knocking on doors, talking to people. And I talked to hundreds of people in Assembly District 1.
And what are
And
they
left
telling you?
literature.
What do they tell you is their biggest concern with our state?
Well, I think the biggest concern they have, I would say, is the economy. Not being able to afford, with prices going up, rents are a problem, groceries are a problem, gasoline's a problem. And now inflation is a national issue, and most of the inflation comes from the Congress, so be careful who you vote for there, and the president, and they're overspending. But also a lot of the inflation comes from the supply chain issues and disruptions that we have, and that we could actually address. One thing we could do with that, for example, is to not close down DMV, and they even closed it down more because only people get in with appointments. So instead of closing it down like that, we open it up for commercial truck drivers, for those licensing. Part of the supply chain problem and prices go up because they don't have the truck drivers that for 2 years during COVID could not get a commercial license. And so we're short hundreds of truck drivers. And so it's like we could actually do and address that issue in terms of inflation and be it like a center here. Because California is still closed down that way. And we could do it here and just be a center for distribution for the supply chain.
What is your answer to the water problems we have in our state?
Well, there's several things we could actually do. And one, for example, would be to divert water from the mountains in northern Nevada that goes into Idaho. We could divert this way. There's like 500,000 acre feet that go into there. Vegas basically, or the Las Vegas Valley, uses about 230,000. So it's twice as much as what we use going that way. The farmers, they actually grow very water intensive crops, mostly alfalfa. It's very water intensive. And they could actually grow crops that only use like a tenth or a sixth of that. And they don't want to, because if they cut down their water usage, they lose it. And so it's like, so those two things, they would have incentives, of course, for farmers to not grow water intensive crops. We'd divert water from Northern California. Also, it's like most of the water flowing out of the Lake Mead and the river basin is going to agriculture. And it's like Imperial Valley uses it. I would probably, how do I put this? Stop sending it to California. Let them sue us for a change.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Garland, do you feel that the citizens of the state of Nevada are getting shorted? And by that, I mean, do you think that our legislature should meet longer than it does. It should meet every year instead of every other year. It should be all year round, or is there enough to do having a state legislature here meet all year round?
If we met all year round, we would find things to do. And that means that we would concentrate on things that are less important. I think that the amount that the legislation meets right now is sufficient as long as we address the actual issues.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to keep it part-time. Like I said, it's term limited, and that's fine.
Right.
I want to talk about gun laws for a minute. What is your stance on the Second Amendment?
Well, I'm very, very strongly in favor of it. I think we have too many gun laws.
Okay. What do you feel about the red flag laws that they passed in Nevada?
Same thing. I think it's a bad idea.
So you would vote to repeal that?
Oh, I would work on it.
How about when they say they want to go after the 30-round magazines? Would you vote against that too?
I would.
Okay. That's good.
Be clear, I'm very definitely for the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment protects all our other rights.
That's right.
And we do not want a government that's more powerful than the people that can come in, lock you up without, habeas corpus, just any number of different things.
Yeah.
The people need to be able to have self-protection, not just from, people that break the law, but also from the government. And that's the primary purpose, as far as I'm concerned, for the Second Amendment.
Right.
And any restrictions on that, I think, is a bad idea.
I agree.
Yeah.
What did you feel about the FBI raid of former President Trump?
The FBI has been shown, even in the past, to be corrupt. Even before Trump became president, they were doing the Steele dossier and that kind of stuff, and lying to the FISA court so they could spy on the Trump campaign. They've been, I'll say, vindictive or corrupt for the whole time Trump was president and now. So it's the same part of the same pattern. I'll say if or when Trump is elected again, I hope he pretty much does away with all the leadership of the FBI.
I'm sure.
So I don't think all FBI agents are corrupt or not doing what they're supposed to do. But I think there's a substantial number that's become politicized at the very top.
Yeah, and I'm sure that would
The
happen.
raid is like for so-called classified documents. It's like they didn't raid Hillary Clinton, and yet she had her server at her house.
Yeah.
I understand that both Bill Clinton and Barack Obama also have classified materials at their houses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
And it's like they haven't been raided.
right. And they won't be.
Yeah, that's going to be.
Maybe when we get a new president.
Yeah, that's
So-
going to be interesting.
What do you say to people that doubt your commitment to the Republican Party, since you were a Democrat and you've kind of gone back and forth? What do you say to all of those people?
My how to say it, foundation is God. I'm a Christian, practicing Christian. The family, a very strong family. The family, I think, is the center of our community, our household. When I say that, it means I listen to my wife. And also the Constitution. That's the foundation. It actually always has been.
Yeah.
There's been times I haven't supported the Republicans because they've been, I'll call them rhinos, when they haven't followed good policies that mesh with that. That they didn't support families. They didn't support the Constitution.
Yeah. Yeah. Families are pretty much the center of a lot of things. Garland, we're getting a little bit short of time. Please tell everybody that wants to vet you a little more, learn a little bit more about you, what your website is. Tell us about any events that you have coming up that people could come out in your district to meet and greet you.
Sure. My website is Brinkley for Nevada. www.brinkleyfornevada.com. So I recommend that one. So come look at it, see what I do there, what I post there. So that's a good way to vet me, to get to know me, and ask me questions. It's like, I'm also on different social media. I'm happy to ask questions. And I've been called names on that, but that's okay. You know, it's like whatever. But
And I've told
good.
Stephanie to stop doing that. I've told her to stop doing that.
I know.
Only
I
trying to
know.
keep up with you. You're not
And then there's two
nice.
events. Yeah, there's a couple of events coming up. One is at the Aliante Library. It's a meet and greet.
Yeah.
Where I'll give a talk for a couple of minutes, hopefully like 5 or 6 minutes, maybe
Uh-huh.
maybe 10 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And it's basically for the candidates out here in North Las Vegas,
Right.
and also at the Sun City Aliante
Okay.
Clubhouse.
Okay.
So I'll be giving those the Aliante Library. I'll just refer to my schedule real quick. It's September 20th, and the Sun City Aliante is the 17th of October.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. Got it. Well, I'm sure you'll be posting that on social media, throwing that
Oh, yeah.
out. Everybody come and meet me and so on and so forth. I think that's great. Anything else before we let them go?
No, I got through my list, and thanks for taking the time to come on, Garland.
Oh, more than happy to.
Best
Happy
of-
to come on anytime.
Best of luck to you. We appreciate you spending some time, and we'll be catching up with you, my friend. Thank you.
Okay, happy to see you again.
Okay,
And thank you.
thanks.
Thanks.
Garland Brinkley, everybody. Interesting.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah,
I can't believe so many seats are run unopposed. There's
it's a lot.
there's a lot
It's
more
crazy,
than
isn't
what.
it?
Yeah, I didn't know that there were so many that happens very frequently.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
that's good that he's in and gonna be looking out for Nevadans.
yeah. Wants to do what he wants to do. So, anyway, so that's gonna wrap it up for this edition of Pick Your Politics. Hope you enjoyed the show. We love bringing it to you. For Stephanie and I, we appreciate you tuning in. We're gonna see you right back, same place, same time. Next week, don't forget, vet your candidates, get out and vote. And again, we've got a great lineup that
do.
Stephanie's put together of contenders that are going to come on in the next several weeks. So until then, take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See you later.